Hello everyone. I've had a ton of questions about which mods I use after posting my Warlock Green Fire video, and so I thought I'd make a quick video about the mods that I use and just give a brief explanation of them. And if you have questions about it or want to know more about a specific mod, just let me know in the comments. So let's just jump right in. The first add-on I'm going to talk about is called Aura Frames, and Aura Frames gives you a little bit more options on how to display your buffs and debuffs. And so the way that I like it is I show my buffs up here in the top left. I can see my personal debuffs right above my character in the center of the screen, and then I can also point out specific target debuffs that I've put on, and it can filter out certain things, and so it really lets me hone in on what I want to know in terms of buffs and debuffs. Next I'll talk about Bagnon, and Bagnon is the one bag sort of replacement. The cool thing about Bagnon is it allows me to see where that item is on my other characters, and it allows me to also see my bank contents without actually being at my bank. So I can type in Bagnon bank and I can see what's in here. I can't interact with it, but I can see that it's there. And then if I open up my bag and I look at this ethereal shard, I can see that I have 6 more on my shaman, I have 1 more on my mage, and I have a 9 total. So it's just a good way to keep track of your items, and if you need to send some items around, you know where they're at. You don't have to log on a bunch of different characters and figure out where they're at. Next I'll talk about Bartender, and Bartender is the add-on that replaces the Blizzard bars. It gets rid of the artwork and just makes it really clean and simple. It has a bunch of options, like advanced options for hiding bars and showing them in certain conditions, and I don't really use it for that, but I just really want to clean bars. One cool thing I will mention about Bartender really fast is doing the key bindings is really nice. So to do it in the basic WoW thing is you have to open up the button, open up the interface, and you have to click on each one, and it just seems like a lot of work. Here I can just click on key bindings, I can mouse over what I want to hit the button, and it key binds it for me. Very simple, very easy to use. Next I'll talk about basic chat mod, and it is exactly that. It does some basic things. It just, for me, it cleans up that chat window, and it adds some stuff in the chat formatting. It allows me to put the chat box on top, that sort of thing. Pretty basic, but it's really nice. Next I'll talk about Bazooka, and Bazooka is an add-on that allows me to use data broker mods, which are additional to Bazooka, and display those somewhere on the screen. So up here in the top middle you see I have several data broker mods that tell me some information about where I'm at, like what durability my items are at, how much backspace I have, what my latency is, etc. This other one in the top right shows me what spec I'm in, and I can just click on it to change it to my other spec. That way I don't have to go into my talents and activate my spec, and I like that it tells me the spec I'm in. Obviously my rogue's not that exciting because I have 2 subtlety specs, but if I'm on a different character like my shaman, which is enhancement in resto, it's just, I can look up there and see where I'm at. And it also will automatically switch gear sets if I have gear sets assigned to each spec, which is really nice. Next I will talk about Castbars, and it's not revolutionary, except that when something is casting something that cannot be interrupted, it puts a shield around their cast, and that way I know that if they're casting that, I can't use my normal means of interrupting it. I have to stun or spell reflective on my warrior or whatever, to just know I can't interrupt it. Next I'll talk about Deadly Boss mods, and Deadly Boss mods basically has a bunch of boss encounters built into it, and it knows what that boss is going to do and when they're going to do it, and it knows what abilities are important to interrupt or just be mindful of, and warns you. And so it just helps you through encounters. Super useful for the Warlock boss to get the green fire. Next I'll talk about Focus Interrupt Sounds, and Focus Interrupt Sounds basically monitors my focus and my target to see if they start casting a spell, and it just makes a little noise if they do. And so if I'm being too focused on something else, it sort of brings me back to what they're doing. and it also plays an additional sound if I interrupt that spell, so I know if I've gotten an interrupt off okay. Next I'll talk about lose control. By default, WoW has a lose control sort of feature built in. When you get CC'd, it shows that icon in the center of your screen. The nice thing about lose control is I can focus people besides myself. So I can focus on I can see my focuses CC, I can see my target CC, and I can also see my arena buddies CC without actually having to click on them and see their buffs. Next we'll talk about mixed scrolling battle text, and you know, I use the in-game stuff for like damage numbers and healing numbers, but I use mixed scrolling battle text for like some status stuff, so like when I leave stealth or leave combat, I can easily see you know, what's going on in those statuses. I also use it for incoming damage, and I show that over here on the left side of my screen. Next we'll talk about Sexy Map, and Sexy Map is for me, it allows me to like simple up my map and get rid of buttons that I don't need, and it allows me to show a square instead of a circle and not have a big huge frame around it. I want the info, I don't want the design behind it. The other cool thing about Sexy Map is it allows me to, for instance, move my quest tracking around, or like my vehicle seat mover, that sort of stuff, which is really nice too. Since I've kind of moved things around on my screen, those things are really nice to move since they don't really fit where they used to be. Next, I'd like to talk about shadowed unit frames. And shadowed unit frames literally are my frames for myself, my target's target, my target's target, and etc. Party frames, raid frames as well. And it's super configurable. I like that I can make really big fat health bars. That's really important to me, especially in PvP. And I can still keep track of energy and know if they're in combat, just all on their unit frame. Another good thing about shadow unit frames that I haven't seen any other mod do is in Battlegrounds, if there's any important target like someone carrying a flag or someone carrying an orb in temple, it creates a unit frame for them, and it doesn't use the focus or anything like that. So if you're playing Warsong Gulch and you know both teams have the flag, I can easily see like who has the flag and like how many weakened armor debuffs they have and all that kind of stuff. And I don't even have to use my focus, I can still use my focus for something else. Next I'll talk about simple raid target icons. For me, I don't like to click on a target, right click on them and go to the raid markers. That's too much work for me. The way that simple raid target icon works is I held down the control button on my keyboard, left click on the thing, the NPC, and I just pick the icon, and I can easily take it off too. And it's just quick and easy. Next I'll talk about tidy plates. Tidy plates is showing these health bars above the NPC's heads. Now this is obviously something that's also built into WoW. The nice thing about this one is it actually shows additional information like combo points or debuffs if they have those. So if I go and attack this little hurdling guy, I can see the debuffs up there, I can see my combo points, and it's just a little bit cleaner than the default WoW one. Next I'll talk about Tip Tack. Really what I like about Tip Tack is it moves my tooltip to where my mouse is instead of being in the bottom right corner of the screen. I'm all about being efficient, and so I don't want to have to move my eyes down to the bottom right corner of the screen to see what I'm trying to look up on my tooltip. And the other cool thing about that is if we're looking at this guy, for instance, I can mouse over him, I can see his buffs without even selecting him, and I can see what his spec is, and I don't even have to select him, which is really nice. Next, let's talk about weak auras. Weak auras allows me to monitor buffs a little bit more closely. Now right now I have 7 buffs, and for instance if I leave combat or if I open up on this hurdling, I'm going to get a buff called Subterfuge, and it's going to be one of the 8 up there, and it's going to be hard for me to figure out how long that's available for. So if I open on this guy, you're going to see a big ninja face in the bottom of my screen right above my toolbars, and what that big thing is telling me, it's telling me I can still use my stealth abilities like Cheap Shot. And so that's what that does for this character specifically. If I pop Shadow Dance, it shows a different skull in the middle of the screen, and I can see like how much time I have left on my Shadow Dance, so how much more ambushes I can get in, etc. And that way I don't have to like scour my buffs for those things, but I can see it in the center of my screen, so I can focus in on all my characters on specific things that I want to focus in on. Next, I will talk about WoW Instant Messenger. And the nice thing about WoW Instant Messenger is it just pops up messages into its own window that I can move around the screen. It makes noises when someone whispers me. It's just a lot easier to keep track of messages than the default WoW stuff. And I know WoW can like break it into its own tabs, but they're just down there and they're hard for me to see. So this is just a way for me to see that stuff a little bit easier because I'm not good at seeing that. This is what it looks like. So I've sent myself some tells here. It has tabs, I can close tabs. And I can minimize messages. It keeps chat history. Also I can like pull up the armory for that person and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. I think these just give you links to copy and then you can paste into your browser. Next we'll talk about X Loot, and X Loot, whenever there's loot in a party situation, it brings up kind of like the standard roller, but it also shows you how everyone in that party is rolled for that. So if 5 people have needed it or whatever, you can see that, and you can see who those 5 people are. And that just helps me figure out how I'm going to roll on things. Try to be nice and appropriate when I'm doing group stuff, so I like to know what people are doing so I can know if I can need or greed something. Next I'll talk about a few PvP add-ons that are important. I'm a big PvPer, and you know, a lot of these add-ons I've talked about so far aid me in that, but these ones are specifically PvP only. First I'll talk about Gladious EX, and that is an arena frame replacement. And the way that works is it creates a frame for my party and it creates a frame for my opponent's party, and it keeps track of everyone's trinket usage, all of their core abilities, or like more important abilities. So like a Paladin's Avenging Wrath, for instance, it will let me know if they've used that already. I might know that they've used it, but I might not know if it's on cooldown or off of cooldown yet, and I can easily see that, or their trinket usage, for instance, is pretty important. Next I'll talk about Battleground Targets, and Battleground Targets basically creates a little party frame for your opponent team, and it shows what their spec is, what their class is, how many people are targeting them, how much health they have, whether they're holding the flag or they're dead, or all that kind of stuff. And it's just a nice little heads up for what's going on with your opponent's team. Next I'll talk about Battleground Defender. And Battleground Defender is this little control panel here that just shows up automatically in Battlegrounds, and I can just click on one of these buttons and it's going to say something accordingly to the battleground to my team. And so if I'm guarding Lumber Mill by myself and there's 3 incoming, I can just click on this 3 button and it will tell my whole party that there's 3 people incoming, and that way I can prepare for the fight or be fighting and not actually have to type anything out. It also has a button for safe, so once I've cleared whatever I've called out that's incoming, I can just hit the safe button and it tells everyone that it's safe now and it's all covered. Next I'll talk about Gladatiorlos SA, and this add-on just announces like audibly whenever someone does an ability that's important. So if I'm fighting a paladin and they use Avenging Wrath and I don't notice the big glowing wings that come out of their back, it says Avenging Wrath, and then I know I need to either do some defensives or get out of there or stun them or disarm them or whatever is best for that situation. And then I have some honorable mentions. I'm not actually going to go over the details of these, but I think they're worth pointing out. Auctionator is great for if you do auctions. Poisoner is what I use for my rogue to keep track of my poisons. Recount does damage and a bunch of combat log stuff, so you can see who dispels, who died, who took the most damage. It's good for analyzing stuff. Next is Reforge Lite. Reforge Lite is a really great way to automatically get the best value out of reforging. It's kind of complicated, but really great tool if you want to like really utilize your secondary stats. Next is Shaman Friend. If you have a Shaman, I would definitely recommend this add-on. It monitors a bunch of Shaman specific things like Earth Shield or Lightning Shield and a bunch of other stuff. And then my favorite is Zelda Loot, and that add-on plays sweet Zelda jingles when you get certain items. Well, that's it for the add-ons. I hope this was helpful, and again, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to do my best to answer them. So I'll see you next time when I make another video. Alright, thank you.